What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, like the title suggests, we're talking Venice, Florida. This is our 2025 edition. So the idea is A to Z, comprehensive, whether you've never heard of Venice or you're as deep in the weeds as possible. This is the video to replace all videos for this current time period. Like I've done in the past, this is going to be an updated version, but I want to talk about geography. I think not only how to shop below Sarasota, but also why does it matter in 2025? More importantly, I want to talk about the real estate and the homes. Where is everything at? What are your actual options? How does that have context to Lakewood Ranch or Sarasota or Fort Myers or Naples? And then we'll talk amenities, lifestyle, and then what you should do now, depending on what you are trying to figure out. So I hope you enjoy my take. If you do, please consider checking out our free guide section on the website. We have Venice, Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch, nice relocation guides. Also have a great 30-day email list. And if I can help you in any way in the real estate market, if you resonate with this video, please consider reaching out. Without further ado, let's hop in. All right, number one on my list, I want to kick things off with one of the most, if not the most important element, and that's geography. Like, do you like where this is on a map? And this is more of a conversation of comparison, in my opinion. The idea of just being like, I possibly want to live below Sarasota. Like, what does that mean? Because none of these things are mutually exclusive to the idea of Venice, the name Venice itself. It's really just south. And if you're going to go south of Sarasota, Palmer Ranch, this kind of area, you have three main things to consider and all these micro things to work through while you're considering these. If we say Venice Island, downtown Venice is the central kickoff point. It's the apex. Do we want to live above it, on it, or adjacent to it, or below it? If you choose any of these options, there's going to be a trade-off and something that someone else deems important that you deem a negative, and vice versa. And that's what I think creates all these decisions. Then the neighborhoods, then the homes, and all of it kind of plays in, but there's material changes in your daily lifestyle depending on which of these you choose. So for instance, if you go the first two towns that you hit before you get to downtown Venice, if you go below Sarasota, so below Sarasota, above downtown Venice, are Osprey and Nokomis. If you're not familiar with the area, these are complete drive-through towns to a lot of people. I'm driving from downtown Sarasota to downtown Venice to check it out, and I'm going to pass through Osprey and Nokomis. I might not even notice, you know. New construction is a little spottier. It's not as master planned. If you look at it, though, you're saying, okay, if I sit in Nokomis, I'm 2.3 miles one way to Nokomis Beach. I go down a little further, I'm 3-4 miles one way to Venice Beach in downtown Venice. So I have access to all that kind of thing. However, I also have access to going north. So not saying that you're right on top of these, but you're 15 miles one way to Siesta Key. You're about 22 miles one way to downtown Sarasota as well. So the thing to know about living north, and you're like, I love new construction going south, but living north would give you the idea that you gain Venice without losing as much of Sarasota. Okay, the second option, let's skip all the way down and go to the complete opposite of the first one, and that is Welland Park, southern Venice, northern Englewood, southwestern Northport. The reason that you're going to get tugged down here, and most people do, is you're going to be chasing a home or a neighborhood, and you're going to step back and find yourself like pretty far south when it comes to the town itself. For instance, you know, I mentioned that Venice Beach was just a few miles from the northern Nokomis Osprey towns. You come down here, that 3-4 miles turns to 8 to 13. That downtown Sarasota turns from 15 to 33. That Siesta Key turns from 22 to 31. Now, again, depending on your perspective, I don't know if 7-8 miles is going to materially matter to you, but you should consider both if you're going to choose either one. So then you have to look at, okay, cool. So what do I gain? I gain the new construction. I'm also 3 miles one way, depending on where you end up, from downtown Welland Park, a brand new downtown. So yeah, Venice Beach is 8 to 13 miles versus 4, but I have my own downtown right in my backyard. I have Cool Today Park. So you get these extra amenities. So it's really just the eye of the beholder kind of value. But when it comes to central proximity and you could choose one over another, if they dropped all of Welland Park in Nokomis, I'm not sure anyone would intentionally choose going south unless they were the very few percentage of people that just want to be away from people, want a more docile Englewood kind of environment. The whole reason that town has value is because of what they're building there. And then the reason I like to have these kind of conversations starting with location so heavy is because then it just makes everything really simple. Like you're saying, I'm making a calculated sacrifice of saying some people deem going south of Sarasota historically as not ideal. So what is it known for? It's known for being a more laid-back alternative to Sarasota's coastal environment. So maybe because you're going a little further, maybe it's a little cheaper. Maybe there's less people because everybody going into Siesta Key, Lido downtown, Longboat Key, and not going here. So that's what it's known for. It had a higher median age. It was very known for retirement because of that, because of the lack of industry. But if you look at saying, I'm already south, I'm going to go north versus really far south, then what's in the middle? What's in the middle is the main town, downtown itself. So this is a simple conversation because do you not care about new construction as much, but you really, really value the beach? What downtown Venice, historic Venice Island has going for it, amongst many things, is it's one of the only non-barrier islands that exist in the area, which means the not water to water feels incredibly closer. It just does. Almost the entire island, if you're on it, you could walk to the beach. There's Venice Beach. Casperson's like the shark tooth capital of the world. Brohard Beach, the only dog beach in the county. And I've done many, many studies economically of if you wanted to walk to a beach and you're on the Gulf Coast of Florida, the entire thing, Panhandle down to Marco Island, what is the cheapest median cost walking to the beach? Venice, on the 2 times I've done it, 25 beach towns I think technically was included in that. Venice Beach was the cheapest overall, #1 out of all 25. The second time I did, I think it was #2. So it's competitive versus the affordable parts of Tampa Bay, the Panhandle, and everything included. So still a unicorn, I think, in this day and age, if you can be okay with a resale home, urban infill, some of the weird housing stuff you have to deal with if you want to live on the island. All right, and lastly, to finish off section #1, I wanted to just add my 2 cents about why does any of this matter? Without context, to me, it's just overload of information, and it just gets more convoluted almost the more you learn. So what I'm excited about right now is the change of demographics. So the whole time I was growing up, Venice was junior Sarasota. It was cool and coastal, but there wasn't a lot of reason that we got, yanked down there. The median age at one point, I think, was like 69 or 70. And this is what the West Villages was before it rebranded and expanded into Welland Park. It was just that kind of town, for right or wrong. Completely changing now. Much younger demographic. Still has all those perks because I think the catch up of where everybody's at versus what's actually happening with net migration, it's kind of a lag. I think it's changed materially, but there's still a lot of the benefits like it hasn't, because the biased minds of the people don't view it still like at the same level as Sarasota a lot of times. So you're still going to save money because of that, and you're still going to get some opportunities, because I think Venice is forming into its own town as a standalone place that you would seek out on Google, seek out on YouTube, not just Sarasota and what's around Sarasota any longer, if that makes sense. When it comes to if you take families, so Florida, they don't build every home like they do in Texas or the Midwest or something. Like, you don't have a bunch of 2 stories that are 5,000 square feet with lofts and playrooms and en suites. They're building 3-bedroom, 2.5, 22 to 3,000 square feet. And a lot of times they're doing no amenities. They're building for kind of empty nester crowds, So if you have 3 kids and you want to get a home that's 4 or 5 bedrooms, that's an anomaly in the state of Florida a lot of times, and which means it comes at a crazy premium. It makes it weird. You're building the weird big model in a neighborhood. But they've changed the way they're doing that because of who's moving there. School-wise, this is what I always thought was unusual. No one's really school choicing down south to Venice, but if you take the schools that are already there, Laurel and Nokomis, 9 out of 10. Pineview, the School for the Gifted in Osprey, it's a public charter. I think it's the #1 elementary school in America. Venice Senior High is on the island, so kids can walk to the beach from the high school. You have Venice Middle, you have Montessori, preschools, all kinds of stuff going on. And I've spoke to a lot of people that are like, my fear is that I move there and there's gonna be no one my kids' ages or anything. Well, they don't have huge high schools and all these schools right here without that being the case, because if you're gonna be down there, I think these people are living, working, and playing in Venice for the most part. So as I digress, I think this is a company you keep. I think if you've been sour on Venice in the past, I think this is a chance for rediscovery. And that's the trending upward trajectory of where this stands in the economic demographic conversation right now is what I find most intriguing. Right, section #2 of this video, we're gonna talk homes, real estate, what's really at your disposal across the board. I wanna separate this in 2 parts. The first being that I'm gonna quickly run around all the different sections of town. I'll display it as well, talk about the cost, the different types of homes that on average fall into these areas, the new construction builders and their communities. And then secondly, I wanna talk about what I personally think is the most interesting, how to think about some ways to shop the area, breaking news, current updates, more real-time releases sitting here in late March 2025. All right, let's start on the in-between Sarasota, Venice. Above the island, to kick things off, we'll just work our way down. I think hopefully this information will start to part the sea a little bit. When you start to see the median cost, you start to see the new construction abundance or lack thereof, and then you're kind of maneuvering. Typically, in my experience, I haven't found where many people come to town and they actually have like even 3 communities slash areas that are actually competing with each other. It becomes pretty binary for good or bad really quick, and I hope this assists with that kind of value. All right, median cost, I think a much better indicator, especially in coastal towns, removing some of the outliers, and at least you know half of the homes were under this cost. Nokomis, Florida, $538K median cost. Osprey, which is the town that sits above it, the closest to Palmer Ranch, is $693K. And North Venice is $546K. I don't know if that would surprise a lot of people. I feel like the sentiment a lot of times is that that area should be cheaper than going below Sarasota, but it is very coastal and also not that abundant. So, you know, probably don't have as many homes playing into the median cost figure. So food for thought there. New community wise, it's kind of a simple conversation. Realistically, there's probably 6 to like 8 communities that you're definitely not going to look at all these, but that are like active in similar time frames. And then there's some legacy stuff that if you're on like newhomesource.com or something, you know, it'd be hard to get an indicator of what's actually available in this market especially. All right, a couple things. Talon Preserve, interesting in Nokomis. That's the sister community of Beach Walk that I've been talking about a lot lately. Really nice amenities. They got the restaurant on site without having the golf. They're like 7 minutes to like 2 beaches. It's an interesting spot. Talon Preserve. Venterra is Taylor Morrison townhomes. So if you've seen, it's a niche product, but it's very coastal. If you've seen them in Sky Ranch or Esplanade Azario launched them as well, it lets you to get a Taylor Morrison product, whether it's investment or not. A lot of times under $300,000, so interesting there. Magnolia Bay is like a normal, nice community by Mattamy. I believe Magnolia is Mattamy. Vistera of Venice is another one that I haven't talked about in a while, but that would be like maybe one of the more abundant communities in this particular area, like real family friendly. It's MI, it is Neil, David Weekley is doing a couple of products in there. I think the largest lot size they go up is like 57 with. You kind of get the peacock element I'm getting across here. You got Casada Lakes, Tiburon, and some other randos. But that's going to be what you're working with here. This is going to be a much more heavy resale-driven market in this area. And let's next talk about downtown Venice and the island itself. All right, when it comes to the main town itself, the in-between, what I'm considering is Venice Island itself, which is pretty defined. If you look on a map and you even zoom in, it looks a very distinct place. And again, you don't have that separation of water as much here. And then also just adjacent, like this kind of in-between area, like Pelican Point, a little bit of Venice Gardens. Really interesting because you just heard the price points I mentioned, and those are not on the beach. Well, of the 300-ish properties that sold over the last like 210 days or so, $374,000 median cost. And this is 100% resale for the most part, other than like urban infill, that kind of thing. So that's a pure record. And that has been the case every time I look. You know, you can walk to the beach from 60% of these properties and a couple different beaches and have that kind of price point is incredibly rare at this day and age. So there's that. Of that, because it's more relevant here than not, of that number, 33% of those were condominiums. The rest were a single family or a villa or something that lives similar to a single family home. And as I digress, the condominiums here are not your pre-construction luxury high-rises like you're going to find downtown Sarasota adjacent or St. Pete, Tampa, Miami. This is going to be much more old school when you think of a laid-back town condominium. It's not as overdeveloped in that way, so that's the middle. All right, and the third section to kind of bookend our real estate macro conversation is going south of the island. Of course, you want to throw in South Venice as an area, and that's considered just under $400K from a median cost. This has like, you know, is becoming known for like the new construction kind of sexiness that's happening lately, but historically there's also like this kind of old school boating community. There's like a ferry that takes you over to the beach. It's not as restricted, that's a big thing. So if you fall in that crowd, like this is where you'll see people park their boat in their driveway or their yard, for good or bad, obviously. 8-foot fences come all the way up to the front of the street. You know, it's not as HOA zoned as a lot of these things are. Englewood is the one that's creeping into the Welland Park conversation. So Englewood is below Venice. It's basically almost as far south as you can go, and then you kind of hop the water to Cape Coral and to Sanibel Captiva, that kind of area. Englewood sitting at $355,000 median. Northport is the western version of both of these. Northport is it's an interesting place. You know, the part that's not just the tip of Welland Park, it's like it's a big area that not that many people occupy. It's kind of like Australia in that way. And it's just kind of an anomaly in the conversation overall. So that one, it's a work in progress. 325K. And that would be kind of most of the zip codes that would be considered in this thing. So if you take all of that, Sarasota's everything in Sarasota is $1 million. And not all new construction is recorded, so there's maybe some shades of gray there, but the median cost of Sarasota sits around 5. It's not, $1 trillion. Lakewood Ranch sits in the mid 6s, and even Parrish as a juxtaposition sits in the mid to low 4s. So if you just wanted to frame how all of this fits in the conversation. So with that being said, this is going to be by far where you have the most new construction options. This is what I was getting at with why would you go below the island? Well, this gives you a reason to. It gives you something that you're not going to get in the other places. Like there's not abundance of new construction below Sarasota anywhere else but here. And it goes from having like maybe 1 or 2 compelling options in your criteria to 20, 25 to pick from. If you count stuff that also maybe finished building in like 2020, but like the oldest house built in 2015, and some of these things like Island Walk and Grand Paradiso and Sarasota National into the conversation is too of what you consider new. A lot of people that I speak to, what they're trying to avoid is obviously new construction is new construction. It's you not only have your hands in it deeper of what you actually want, but you also have this guarantee of the build timing and the codes and the floor plans, importantly, right? If you go look at stuff that was built in 95 to 2005, that's where the boxiness comes from. It's a way that people don't want to live anymore that they may be used to. Formal living room and not, formal dining room and not. And most people would consider, well, square footage used in the wrong way for me, if I can't knock down the walls, would be null and void square footage. You go post-2010 even, hurricane standards, the roofs, floor plans, it's more aligned to what people want. There's a myriad of options if you open yourself up to that conversation. And what I would recommend, not to get crazy here, is that I use new construction is the best way to learn the town in most towns. But once you know things well, then and you're like, I want to live in this circle, then I would recommend you open up, even for a sanity check, like the other things that maybe you're not even aware of because there's no listings in that same conversation, and that would be the bucket. 2 main ways to go about new construction in this area is you have the kind of like guys that stand on their own. So there's a community called Beach Walk by Manasota Key. It's hence the name, it's very, very far western. It sits parallel to Manasota Key, and it's 2.5 miles. It might be one of the only in the whole Gulf Coast, including Naples, North Fort Myers, you can golf cart to the beach, realistically, right? Because even Seaflower, that might be a dicey golf cart. So you have that. Boca Royale is called Welland Park, but it's actually very far west, and it sits below Beach Walk. So you have those kind of 2 that most people are like, it's Welland Park and then that, but that's a great comparison. And then you have Welland Park. So what happened with Welland was you had this district of a few communities. You had Renaissance, Oasis, Grand Palm, some of the Neal stuff or the Lennar stuff, and it was it kind of set a little eastern, one of the most popular retirement districts that existed. And then they add a new district called the Playmore, and they go down and reach down and grab Boca Royale as well, and they rebrand this whole thing into Welland Park. They do fantastic with like their ambassadorship for themselves. They have these mini like Chamber of Commerce things they put in these areas. Website, unbelievable. It's one of the better ones next to Lakewood Ranch. So because of that, it looks like one thing. And they're not far from each other, but that's not really what it was. It's an evolution. And there's 2 main sections. The one that everybody's like really hot on right now is that Playmore. The Playmore is where they built a downtown like a mile away. It's one of the most golf cart friendly places you could probably be next to like the Villages or something like that. You have Cool Today Park, the baseball stadium's right there too. So they do like not only spring training baseball with the Braves if you're into that, but they also do like 250 plus live events a year. And there's a tiki bar I think open all year round too. So that gives you that live, work, play kind of turnkey thing, or really just like live, play for most of the people moving there. So that's the real attraction. That's where Venice really is different, is that, take the waterside district of Lakewood Ranch. Like people unanimously typically like Lakewood Ranch, unless you're just really against master plan in general. But it's so big, 40,000 acres or so, 33,000 plus, whatever. And And then they added this waterside district, which gave you, most of Lakewood Ranch is like a very short drive, and most of Florida is too, but not really walkable. Waterside gave you like a thing that you can really have access to. Everything's right in this one area. But it was built the closest to town than all of Lakewood Ranch, the very first section in Sarasota County. So it gave you that, but it came at a premium. It was viewed as the belle of the ball amongst Lakewood Ranch. Well, so if you love that, the chance you're being priced out, or the home doesn't quite work, or it's built not for someone like you because of how it's positioned, then Sarasota doesn't have a plan B for that. Like downtown Sarasota is not going to do that at how you would want it if you like waterside. Welland Park is the only thing that did that, and it came at a discount because it's Venice. So you could have a mini version of what waterside is potentially, but it was far more affordable to the median cost of the town itself. So all that to say, that's the name of the game with this particular area. That's why if you talk to me on the phone, or you have recently, like that's where I'm always kind of juxtaposing those two areas, and they're very far apart. So it's a really great way within a 4-hour span to be like, boom, boom, you get a little bit more concise version of what I'm doing here, and then I can observe and see kind of what would happen next, and then we can get serious because you like 2, then I want to show you the 3 other resale communities you like and the other new construction communities you like, and we just kind of work through. So Neal Communities is all over here. You have multiple Toll Brothers, a lot of Mattamy presence. There is a exclusive 55 and up active adult living. There is multiple deeded golf communities that are affordable. There are a mix of luxury communities coming with custom builders. Lee Wetherington's down here, Arthur Ruttenberg's down here, John Cannon. You have new players on the block like ICI, Neil Signature's down here. So everything you've seen elsewhere. The reason I know so much about this weird territory of new construction is because once you kind of know it, like you could take this conversation to Wesley Chapel to Marco Island a lot of times, and that's the cool thing about it is you're not learning anything in vain. So that's what I'd say about number 3. And give me a minute, and I want to talk about maybe some things that I've been particularly hot on as of late. All right, for section 2, and I know I went pretty hard in the paint regarding all that information, but I just wanted to try to get the things that I think are most helpful to you guys out. Let me just walk through a few exercises of just things that I think are particularly interesting. So one is the idea of juxtaposing beach walk versus Palmyra. So if you look at Beach Walk by Manasota Key, which offers that incredibly rare access to the water, but it's the only one. So the trouble with being so excited about one community and it not working is it's very hard to then satiate that need. What I would heavily encourage is that, the real like functional use of being that close to the beach, because if you're not on the water, you're not on the physical sand where you can walk outside. You get 2-3 miles away, it's not going to live that different, in my opinion, than 8 to 9 miles away as well. Either one is completely fine, but you take gross sacrifices for trying to jam your way closer to the water. So, if you look at both, and then if you do choose the water one, then at least you weren't unaware of the rest. Palmyra is probably one of the best communities to do that in. So Palmyra is one of the most western communities, especially with its expansion that's coming, the most western communities that's in Welland Park. So it's in the district that everybody wants to be in, so you're close to all the Welland stuff, but you're going to be, I think, 11 miles one way from the Manasota Key Beach and the Venice Island. So you're going to be in this like 18-20 minute range realistically, but also Beach Walk is one builder, DeVosta. Palmyra came out with a really unique offering. There are like 6 builders in there, and it's like a peacock. Homes by Towns in there, ICI. You have MI doing townhomes and single families in there. Neal's in there. David Weekley's in there. So it lets you go in whether you have a $650,000 price point or a $1.5 million price point and juxtapose it against DeVosta. And then also the location. So 20 birds, one stone. It's a really interesting exercise to walk through. That's one thing I like. Also, Talon Preserve is a very close sister to Beach Walk. They came out almost at the same time. It's the same builder. It's a brand, it's amenity-rich brand of Pulte, but one's above the island, one's below. So if you want to really walk through that exercise of how that difference feels on 2 very coastal communities built by the same person, that's a cool way to do it. And then also, like what I love to do economics-wise to learn is see how a builder, the same builder, prices its own communities against themselves. because then you see what they consider the geography. You see what they consider a premium and not, especially if they have similar floor plans and amenities. They're not saying that's the reason. They're saying it's the geography and the timing. So I like that. What else would be helpful? Everly is interesting if you're looking for the custom level stuff that's like parts of Wild Blue, parts of the Lake Club. You want that level. Even like Country Club West and what they did with East. But Lakewood Ranch isn't for you. They did a little spotty custom stuff within Sky Ranch, but it wasn't like that many lots. Everly's all custom, and it's those guys I just mentioned. Neil Signature also offers, like if you're like a 1.2 guy, girl, or whatever, just over $1 million, Neil Signature offers that. The rest are gonna really sit you above the 1.5 though. And I know a lot of people I've talked to a lot of people about that concept because Venice hasn't been that in the past. It hasn't gone crazy in that respect. But sometimes the home that you want or need has to be that. And you also want to be in Venice, and there's just not a plethora of options to do that with in the new construction market. So I like that. Lennar Golf is one of the most affordable ways to get into this, to a deeded golf thing. So they build Calusa, but Welland Park Golf and Country Club is Lennar. Sarasota National is Lennar. Lakewood National, Lennar. Bonita National, Babcock National, Calusa, the new one in Lakewood Ranch. Deeded golf, and it's by one of America's biggest inventory-based builders. So whether you want to grab that, remodel it, you want an investment, they do a lot of like coach products and unique terrace condominiums and things like that. Important thing about that is the price point. They come in at like $285, $320, something like that. So, and they're large single families. If you could do Lennar, are affordable in the grand scheme of things. Keeping an eye on future development. This thing's just getting started. We might have 20 years left of this. Downtown Welland's lovely. It removes the need to rush to downtown Venice constantly. If you keep an eye on Myakka Pines is an old school golf club in Englewood. John Cannon is playing heavily in the development of that, but Taylor Morrison's bringing an Esplanade brand down there that I believe is going to have the Bahama Bar, the pool, and all that thing at 877 homes to that area. I don't know the reciprocal golf membership yet, but it might be like a Meadows potentially where you have access to it, pay in or something like that. I'm not sure yet. I'd be surprised if they don't end up in that space. You could also do custom down there with Cannon. And if you take what that might look like, look at Esplanade at Sky Ranch and look at half of Esplanade Azario. Esplanade Azario is like 1,500 homes. About 900 of them are social memberships, not golf. I think that's gonna be unique as well. Okay, my third and final section is gonna be along the lines of lifestyle, things to do, etc. I usually don't get crazy in this particular area. But I think there's a few things that would be valuable to you if you resonated with any of the previous minutes of this video. Number one is this is all about just a vibe and a feel, for lack of better words. The biggest determining factor of Venice isn't going to be because there's some sort of town amenity that people are trying to get close to. It's that it's not what Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch are. Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch are going to be far more like kind of uppity in a non-pretentious way, if that makes sense. It's got a generally more upscale feel across the board. Not that Venice is like down here and it's up there. It's different materially in that effect. Venice is going to be laid back. It's going to feel a lot more coastal, the whole area. And then it's also more nature-centric. It's not only laid back, but it's like a throwback, if that makes sense. So I liken it a lot to much more of like Dunedin, Safety Harbor, like in Pinellas County, in the Tampa Bay area, that kind of area, north of Clearwater Beach. Parts of Naples, Fort Myers, where like the beaches are a little bit more dune-esque and it's like untouched feeling than some of the Siesta Keys and that kind of thing of the world. So if that makes any sense, that's the real feeling of the people that love Venice, love it for those kind of reasons, because it's the alternative. It's not, you're not accidentally happening upon it. Everything kind of cascades from there. So as far as lifestyle right now, I think one of the best introductions was when they built these suburbs back in the day, they didn't have commercial amenities that satiated people's needs in a non-chain environment. So it kind of forced people to every date night and these kind of things, they had to go to town. They had to go to downtown Sarasota, maybe downtown Venice. But the advent of like what downtown Welland is multiple restaurants, there's communal space, there's a kind of a non-boatable lake, and it's a great place to gather, and it removes some of that tug. So now you have both of those things. Historic downtown Venice is, it's really lovely. looks just like that, historic downtown Venice. It is an old school kind of beach downtown. Super walkable. There's a daiquiri deck down there. There's a bunch of like really good restaurants, a little kind of like harbor. You can walk right to Venice Beach. So those are two main things. Beyond that, I mean, the beach is low-hanging fruit. There's like 14 miles, I think, technically of coastline. Venice Beach is the main one right off that island. Casperson Beach is the one known for shark's teeth. A lot of people feel like the density of shark's teeth you could find there is #1 in the world. Brohard Beach is the only dog allowable beach in the county, including like, Sarasota, Manatee, etc. And then you have Nokomis Beach, you have Casey Key, which I think still the home of Stephen King, the author. All of that sits below Siesta Key, so there's that. And then lastly, I mean, there's a bunch coming. So you have like, Sarasota Memorial's made a big push of hospitals down there. That's going to bring a lot of commercial amenities. You're going to get bigger box stores and things like that as well. But the other thing that people really enjoy about this particular area is the kind of trail, nature-centric element to it that's not coastal. So like Legacy Trail, the road biking here, there's a lot of options. The getting outside, just walking trails is a lot bigger in this area than some others. The access to Mayaca and the river is a part of that conversation as well. So I know that's kind of random thoughts, but I feel at the stage that people are watching these kind of videos and visiting, that's really would be the best thing to try to figure out. When you're here, what we don't know that only you will know is you try to experience these towns in many ways to say, like, would this be for me day to day? Because a lot of things feel really, really charming in a 4-day visit. I look at houses every time I go on vacation. And, like you go to Charleston, South Carolina, or Savannah, Georgia, you're like, oh, I could live here for sure. Venice gives you that vibe. So there's a difference between that and like what happens next. So that's how I like to view lifestyle. Okay, folks, that is a wrap for today's video on Venice, Florida in 2025. I really hope you enjoyed it. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. This channel is called the Florida Relocation Guide. If you liked it, please consider subscribing to the channel. You will see a video from me most Wednesdays and Sundays for the rest of the year, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And subscribing is just the best way to kind of see what's coming next, in my opinion. Beyond that, if I can assist you, if you liked any of this kind of content, we have a unique way of trying to inform because we focus so much on relocation. So I'm really going geography down, but that's not separate than the way that we also would handle you as a real estate client. So our brokerage is right off the back of this, so it's very much like 1 + 1 = 3 situation. So if you liked the way that this is done, then I think you'll be even more pleasantly surprised by what happens if you reach out. So call, text, email, we do relocation full time basically. So if you're 2 years out, do not feel bad about reaching out. Like, it takes 14 months to build a lot of these homes. So don't let timeline affect anything. You're not gonna waste our time. So whether you're ready now or 10 years from now, please consider reaching out, because that's kind of what we're after here. When it comes to kind of what you can do independently, I have a free guide section of my website where hopefully by the time I post this video, I've completed my Venice, Florida update on relocation guides, but we have Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch. I'm gonna have more released there. I also have a 30-day email list. That's if you download any guide, you'll be on that unless you opt out. But the last day of every month, I handwrite an email that is just no pictures, no frills, but really bullet point stuff. So it'll be a little bit more consumable than the way that I speak out loud. But it's just boom, 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 and it's like everything I'm trying to figure out, everything I'm working on, interesting thought exercises that I've been walking people through. I think that's a great accent to this kind of channel. It's one of my favorite things about like value-added things that we create. So you can sign up for that. You'll get kind of a notification that, hey, yeah, you're signed up. But if, like, say you sign up on, April 2nd or something, then, it's obviously going to feel like a long time because we send on the last day of the month. But at any time you can reach out and say, can I have the previous months to get an example, something like that. And I think that about does it. Thank you guys so much for taking any of your precious time to consume my content. We'll see you on the next one.